It is 1982. I'm feathering my hair, and Alanis Morissette is on the TV. But she's not a famous singer yet. She's being slimed on You Can't Do That on television on a new kids network called Nickelodeon.
It's 1983. Your mom is yelling that you destroyed the couch with green baby puke, and there's powdery dust all over the floor and in the sink. But you were just keeping your baby alive, soft and sweet. She can drink and she can eat. Baby alive, beautiful face, dressed in pink and pretty lace.
It's 1986, and you're excited because you just scored Patty Puke and Bad Breath Seth, trading Garbage Pail Kids cards. And you love that they look like someone took your cute Cabbage Patch doll and put them in a blender. As kids, we transfer a ton of germs and sometimes gross things to our toys, but some toys are just plain gross on their own. In the spirit of the holidays, today we will talk about everything gross with toys and take a little walk down memory lane because, guys, don't you agree? The 80s had quite a few gross toys.
Oh, yes.
Oh, gross. The drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Icky's what we do, it's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. Your gross out journey starts right here on Oh, gross.
I mean, Baby Alive had to have been the grossest. I mean,
It's still gross today.
It is. The doll would poop its little diaper and pee its diaper. And the food, they would give you this little powdery thing that you would mix up with water and you would feed it and you would turn the battery on and it would go, nom, nom, nom.
It still does. My daughter has one and it clogs the sink all the time. It is the grossest thing in the world.
But did you ever try to put that food in your easy bake oven?
No. Did you? Did you?
I'm sure someone has.
Yeah. Well, this is the funniest thing. So Baby Alive's been around forever.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
1973, it was invented. Yeah. And then I got mine, though, in 1984. No, 1983. I got mine in 1983.
It's still around today. I mean, my daughter has gotten multiple versions of it. And it's like the worst. Every time she opens up, me and Brian look at each other like, no, not another Baby Alive. And it gets like crusty around the mouth and like just dries up.
Does it still poop its diaper? And
yes, it poops and it looks like it's barfing. Like it literally spits up. It spits up.
They actually have stuff on the internet of how to clean out your Baby Alive because they mold inside.
They do?
Oh, no. That makes sense, though.
They do. So I was looking all over the internet and there's YouTube videos of how to clean out the inside of your pooping and peeing Baby Alive.
Wait, now I'm going to go check for mold.
I know. Is it like, do you put vinegar in there?
Yeah.
Alcohol? Like, what do you put in there?
Vinegar and water. Yeah.
Vinegar and water.
You kind of flush it out with vinegar and water. But people were talking about, what am I supposed to do? My daughter's Baby Alive is all molded and there's mold coming out of its mouth and its butt.
Kara, go get that Baby Alive right now.
I know. I was just thinking, should we swab my daughter's Baby Alive?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And see
we need a live test.
Yes, that might be a follow-up episode, right? Live test it. Yeah.
Let's go to the lab.
It's funny because I was reading this LA Times article. It's all about how 1985 to like 1986 were like the grossest toys in history.
Yes.
And that like people were up in arms. Well, first of all, the Garbage Pail Kids story was crazy because I guess like Cabbage Patch Kids got really mad. They got really angry the second year they came out, because the first year, I think they came out in 1985 and they were kind of popular. But by 1986, and I remember this, the Bears won the Super Bowl. That's how I remember.
Yes.
I remember like it was like a big deal to trade those cards, and you were always trying to get, either Atom Bomb or whatever it might be. So they got sued, but the cards actually became an overnight sensation. But then when it was settled, they had to change the cards and people didn't like it. And that's why they eventually went away. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Didn't they come back at some point, like as like in the 2000s? But for our generation, that's why they kind of sort of fizzing out was this whole lawsuit.
Oh, I didn't know that they went away because of that.
But I have to tell you a story about my mom. So my mom would always try to get whatever the new toy was because of this whole Cabbage Patch thing. When you remember, you couldn't get the Cabbage Patch doll and all that kind of stuff. So she would find something else unique. So when Garbage Pail Kids were popular, a new toy comes out. And I don't know if you guys remember this or not. It was called Breath Blasters. Do you guys know what this is?
I don't remember that.
No.
Probably because it was taken off the shelves very quickly. So Breath Blasters, my mom gives us one Christmas and we all, 3 of us at the time, we all open it up and each one is like called like Morning Breath, Victor Vomit.
Oh, I bet that one was great.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like Victor Vomit. And it literally smells like, one was like smelled like a garbage can on purpose. And when I tell you it literally smelled like that, it was like horrific. Like we opened it up and we were like gagging. That's how bad these things smelled. And they were little tiny figurines. And inside they had this little like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like a little plastic sort of container that had the smell in it, the vomit smell or whatever it might be. They were like George Garbage Mouth. And it literally smelled like garbage. They had Ms. Morning Breath.
Disgusting.
Totally disgusting. Then there was another one that was Death Breath.
Ew.
Can you imagine being in that
Why
lab?
would you
and
think
you're like,
that's a good name?
let's give a kid a toy that's called Death Breath.
That would only happen in the 80s.
Right?
Yes.
Only in the 80s. But this was the grossest one, I thought. Mackerel Mouth.
Ew.
Oh.
I can actually kind of, ew.
Right?
smell
Like
it?
a
You
fish-
kind of smell when
smell
you,
the just saying the word mackerel mouth, you're like,
Yes.
it's lingering. It's lingering. And then I think there was one that was dog breath that was probably the best one. That was like the least offensive of all of them. But even I had read in this article that like even when they were testing them out, because there's like toy testers and things like that, they were like,
That's hysterical.
people were so up in arms in this. And there were so many stories that were saying we cannot have this toy. Like you need to take this off the shelves. This is like people are getting sick in the aisle. I guess it was even smelling up the aisle it was in. And it was like meant to do that. But it was, they say like that whole year, like the 1985, 1986, it was everyone's trying to top each other, like and how gross they could get. So we were so excited to have them, but we were all vomiting. Then my dad finally went inside and like took each one of those little tiny containers with the smell out of our figurines so we could keep the ugly figurines, right? But the smell was gone.
Those things are like the anti-strawberry shortcakes.
It was that's exactly what it was.
Strawberry
That's what it was.
shortcake was great.
I know.
Yeah. No, but you're exactly right. I think they were trying to top each other. They also said like this article in the LA Times was talking about how like toys were also the ugliest.
Well, the Cabbage Patch Kids, I mean, they weren't cute. They always would say they're so ugly, they're cute.
And wait a
Right?
minute. And by the way, the Cabbage Patch Hospital is only an hour away from us. It's in
Oh,
Clinton,
it is.
Georgia, and we pass it every time we go to summer camp.
Yeah, you can
forgot
go
about
watch
the
them
Cabbage
get
Patch.
born there. It's a
Yes.
big deal.
Yeah.
The
We should
Babyland
take a
Museum.
field trip, Babyland Museum. But in Chicago, and I know, Kara, this was the same for you, when Cabbage Patch Kids were really popular, I mean, people were beating each other down, standing outside of the stores, like
Oh, it was
droves
bad.
of hundreds of people fighting each other over these Cabbage Patch Kids. And I was so excited that I got mine. Mine was Louise Terry was my first one. Louise Terry, the Cabbage Patch doll.
So I think coming out of like the whole Cabbage Patch launch, then all of a sudden we take this like really weird turn and we're now in like, what was that called? Like Rude Randy or Rude Ralph or something, that one Mad Ball.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was a Mad Ball or was it a spinoff of a Mad Ball? And it was like rude to you when you squeezed
Yes.
I want to find that one too.
it. Right. And Garbage Pail Kids. And then you have, these short-lived breath blasters. It's just interesting that like the ADA labeled it the year of the ugly toy or something. In 1986, it's so crazy. Like, but the toy makers were trying to defend themselves on like why this was okay. And they're like, well, kids have all different kind of fantasies and sometimes they're terrifying and gross. And this is just part of their fantasy land. But like, even like some of those Garbage Pail Kids, like you could never get away with those names now. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there was,
Yeah.
I mean, there was like one with like a pencil stuck in its brain, remember?
I got in trouble for those. We would always get in trouble with
Yeah.
Preacher's Kids. My mom would always say, those are terrible. And of course, Aaron, my middle brother, would sneak them in,
So, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, like Potty Scotty and like, all these like dead, dead Ted, like he's literally dead.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I hate to say it, but David and Shawnee would love these now.
You're right.
They would
kids-
love them.
Oh,
They
yeah.
would love them.
Killian
Kelly
would
would love him too.
really
Yeah,
love
kind of
it,
be all
yeah.
over it. I didn't really play with the Mad Balls, but I know that a lot of people. Did you guys have Mad Balls?
Mm-mm.
The ones that have the weird
I
eyes?
didn't have those either.
Yeah, I think more boys than I knew had them, but they were like really ugly too. If you go look at them, it was around that same time, and they have bulging eye sockets.
I mean, everything was gross back then, wasn't it? Though,
Gross.
because everyone
was-
was getting slimed on Nickelodeon.
Yep.
You know,
And we had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Were at
Every-
that time.
Everything was just like gross was in. It was like perfect. It was all about
Yes.
it was gross was definitely in. But yeah, I just think it's so funny that, you know, of course it was the 80s, right? But even like if you look up how many like gagging, burping, puking, pooing, all that stuff was happening, it was like, hey, what can we make the toy do? Speaking of the history of toys, I'm super excited about our guest today, Chuck Knerr. He's not only a toy historian, but he is also the son of the founder of Wham-O Toy Company and American inventor, Richard Knerr. And he himself is a toy maker, has a company called Spud and Rich and a whirly-go-round that he's invented. And he's just a joy. And I'm sure he's going to have more to add to this conversation and take us down the toy memory lane. Here's Chuck Knerr.
Hi,
Hi, Chuck.
welcome.
how are you?
I'm going to give a little backstory, Chuck, so they know how we know each other. So my very first documentary that I directed was called Big Time. And I went and interviewed across the country iconic companies and people and asked them like what the greatest failures were that led to success instead of starting with success.
And when
I
they
think
all
you-
said no, she came to me.
No, not true. When we decided we were going to do a toy episode, I was like, we have to have Chuck on. And I literally informed him yesterday. So it's like the theme is gross. So you've got to come to the table with all your knowledge about gross toys.
And one of the
Okay.
toys that we were actually just talking about was slime.
Yeah, that's something that Mattel came to market with after Wham-O's patent ran out. It was originally called, here, I was prepared. Super stuff.
Oh.
So everyone listening knows Chuck literally has a Wham-O toy museum behind him right now in his house.
You know, this is so funny because, looking at the way everything's made today, all automated. This is a cottage cheese container that they had printed. And you can see there's a packet of powder in here, hot pink colored powder, because it was 1968. So everything was hot pink. And you would put the powder in here and fill water up to this line, and then put the lid on and shake it for about 3 or 4 minutes, get it all well mixed up. And then you set it down. And in about an hour, it turns into super stuff. It's a big hot pink blob that you play with. And that's what eventually became slime. I think slime was formulated maybe a little more runny, so it was more gross. But
So how did Super Stuff come about?
an oil company engineer from Houston developed this powder, and it was to be able to extract very heavy crude oil from a well when they couldn't get the pump to, it wouldn't come up because the pump wasn't primed. So he came up with this powder. They'd pour it down the well with water and let it sit. And then the idea was they could then prime the pump and get the oil up. But it just didn't work, unfortunately, for him, but fortunate for all us kids, because they came to Dad and Spud and showed it to them. And their reaction was, now that's a toy. Because they were just big kids at heart. They knew what was fun. And they brought it home to us kids, his daughters and me and my sisters, and we played with it. And then it was a huge, huge selling toy for them in 1968, 69, 70. But
Wow.
it was fun. But I'm sure Mom's got a little fed up finding super stuff everywhere in the furniture.
We still find slime everywhere.
yes,
We all
gonna
hate
In the
slime.
hair. In the
Yeah.
hair. And everywhere else. Yes.
In the
The
couch.
carpet
Yeah.
and the, couch.
carpet.
But that's nothing
My
compared
boys
to
love it.
there was something called super elastic bubble plastic, which was probably the best product name ever. And
Yeah.
it came in a toothpaste tube, and you would squeeze out a little bit on a little plastic pipette, and you'd blow.
Like a
Oh,
straw.
yes.
It was
Like a
like
straw.
glass blow.
Yes.
Yeah, a little straw.
Yes.
And you'd blow these big, colorful bubbles. It looked like you were blowing glass, multicolored glass. And they were great fun. And that was 1970. So everyone had shag carpet and Naugahyde furniture. Naugahyde's the trade name for vinyl. Unfortunately, because of the distillates in this formula, it would just adhere to vinyl like it was welded on. So any vinyl furniture that one of these bubbles landed on, or if the kid dripped some, it was a huge mess. Real problem for parents. Meant kids had theirs taken away a lot.
I remember seeing that though. How long did that toy last? Because you said it was in 1970, but I
Right.
remember seeing, girls, did you ever see that with the little plastic and they would blow the beautiful colored bubbles?
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
I'll grab you one here.
I just want to pause for a moment just to let everybody know that we are going to have pictures of these toys on ogross.com and also videos on our socials at It's O Gross.
This was Wham-O, and nobody else did it until later, after Wham-O stopped making it, after it tailed off. Then a lot of other companies did. That's the nature of the business.
Were you and your sisters the official toy testers then for the company growing
Yes.
up?
Yes, and Spud had 5 daughters, so they had a good test market with us.
So who came up with the slip and slide? Because that was my favorite thing growing up. Who came up with that?
Talk about dangerous
Well,
toys.
speaking of Naugahyde, it all started with Naugahyde. An upholsterer there in Southern California saw his kids waiting down their sloped concrete driveway and then slipping, sliding down it on the concrete. So
On the concrete?
yeah, so
Oh my gosh.
fathers being what they are, he decided I could help them do better and prevent a trip to the emergency room, maybe. And he laid down a strip of Naugahyde, and they ran the sprinklers on that. Dad and Spud were known for, listening to anybody's invention because it pays off once in a while. And he brought it into them, and they said, this looks great. But they made it out of course, big plastic sheets, and then devised a way to fold over the plastic so that it had a seam running all the way down it with little holes in it. Water would come out of that and evenly sprinkle it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great fun. It actually saved the company, that product. They had a tough time after Hula Hoop because it took off so wildly and crashed so suddenly. They almost lost the company
Oh my gosh.
because of it. But Slip and Slide bailed them out. So we loved Slip and Slide.
Who doesn't
It was
love
the
slip
best.
slide?
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
We killed lots of patches of grass with slip and slide because
Oh,
we
yes.
wouldn't move it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Never
would
moved
just
it.
Slip and slide for hours and hours. Yes.
Yeah, great for kids, tough on the lawn.
Tough on your skin sometimes too.
Yeah, tough on your skin as well.
Well, if you roll over a rock, it would
Yes.
hurt.
Oh, the
Yes.
worst when you would roll
Yeah.
over a rock on your belly. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm feeling it right now in my backyard. Ugh. I also, when one of my favorite Wham-O toys that is definitely in the gross category is Instant Fish.
Instant fish.
We have to talk about Instant
Yeah.
Fish.
Do you eat this or do you play with it?
No, Chuck, you need to tell us all about the Instant Fish.
There's a tiny little aquarium in here and a little packet of fish eggs. And you fill up the aquarium and you put the eggs in there and fill it up with water. And then in about a week, you start to see little tiny fish swimming around in there.
Jenny's all excited.
And they grow into about the size of a guppy. And it was fabulous. It's all because they heard about this ichthyologist, guy who studies fish. There are these fish in Africa, down in the Kalahari Desert, where it's really dry in southern Africa. And they have rainy seasons, and these big water holes fill up, and then the fish hatch from the rains. And when it dries up and, summer, the eggs they laid are still there in the mud till the following year when the rains come again, and then they hatch. That's how they survive.
Wow.
So they found out about this and got a bunch of these eggs, and it was the biggest toy at Toy Fair in New York that they'd ever seen as far as taking orders. They were writing orders hand over fist. I mean, they just couldn't. They were coming in the middle of the night and slipping orders under the door to them. Their
Everybody
hotel
wanted
rooms.
Instant Fish.
Yeah, it was
What
just
year was this?
62, I think it was, 1962. I mean, there's millions and millions of dollars of orders. The only problem was when they got all these orders, Dad's in New York at the Toy Fair and Spud's back at the plant in San Gabriel. And they started lining the factory floor with wading pools and filling them up with water and putting these fish in them. And they couldn't get the fish to breed. They couldn't get the fish to get in the mood, so to speak. They tried playing
They
Frank
weren't so
Sinatra. They were playing
Wait a minute.
Sinatra and
Wait a minute.
Dean Martin.
Wait. You have to tell. Wait, I need you to just set this up for us. So they're literally playing music to try to get the fish to get it on.
Yeah. Barry White wasn't around then, but they used Sinatra and Dean Martin, and They tried everything, classical music, the lighting, they changed the lighting, darkened it. They were beside themselves because they couldn't. And they ended up having to cancel every order except for Sears and Montgomery Ward's
Wow.
that they were able to film.
Oh, no.
So did they have research, like solid research, where they were like, hey, listen, fish get really horny if you play music? Like, was there some sort of like research that they were like, that's why they were trying the mood lighting and the music?
Well, there was a lot of beer drinking going on at the time, I think.
They're just sitting around cracking a beer, being like, hey, try
Yeah.
the Sinatra.
What can we do now?
Come on. Let's go, Flipper. Come on. They hired an ichthyologist from La Cañada. He didn't know what to tell them. He thought they were nuts.
They bring them in, they're like, can you make this fish?
Yeah.
Want to get it on.
Just so everyone knows, an ichthyologist studies fish.
You know, and it's not like they could wear something sexy. Fish don't wear anything. So
They were like, too much pressure. Okay. We're in like a warehouse and you've got us in like a little tide pool.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. They were not
This is not how
satisfied
we-
with their wading pools.
This is
Yeah.
not what we do. This is
Yeah.
how we do it.
this
Yeah.
is not romantic. This is a
This is
factory.
not romantic. Maybe they should have given them some beer. I don't know.
Right. Some wine, something.
Yeah. Some wine and dine them.
There was another product that came to mind when I saw your title, Oh, Gross. This wasn't gross immediately. Parents loved this. It was Fun Farm. It's a little plastic egg container.
Wow.
You would,
It's an egg carton with little veggie pictures on it.
And there's vermiculite or little growing medium in there. And there were different seeds, cantaloupe, green beans, spinach, pumpkins. You'd put it in the windowsill. And every day we'd take a little teaspoon and put a little water in each one. And by golly, pretty soon, those little plants started coming up out of there. And that was really great fun until you planted them outdoors and you saw what came out of these things, like
Uh-oh.
tomatoes. And your mom had to serve you the tomatoes. And if there's one thing I'd put under Oh, Gross, it's tomatoes. Now, my dad says that's because I've never had a good tomato, but I'm not buying it. And radishes.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a fan of radishes.
So actually, my son loves tomatoes, but radishes with kids are rough.
Yeah.
Brussels sprouts. I mean, these are
Oh, they were Brussels sprouts. Oh, so they were like, it was like every kid's worst nightmare of food.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And you see this one? This one is a mystery vegetable.
Oh,
You don't know what
what?
that's going to be. Yeah,
Oh.
A mystery vegetable.
yeah. It's probably
That's fun.
they swept up off the floor that spilled. You never knew.
Well, like we were talking about earlier, the 80s had outrageous toys that were loudly gross, boldly gross. Did the 60s and 70s have anything like that?
Well, there was this thing.
What is it? What is
It's
it?
it's like a cane. It's a walking stick. And
Wait, with a
it's called-
terrifying top. What is that top?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Is that a King Kong
that's
cane
not.
or what is that?
What it is you fill this up with. You open the little spigot here, and you fill it up with water, and then when you push down on the head, there's a little tiny emitter in the mouth, and it squirts like a squirt gun.
Okay.
So it's the super sneaky squirting stick. So you walk up to your friends, and while you're talking, you
Wait,
push down on it.
Snoop, say it again. No, you have to say it again. What is it? It's called the what?
It's the super sneaky squirting stick.
That's awesome. My boys would love that.
I was going to
That
say,
name
can we
is
still get
amazing.
that?
That
That's
Yeah.
name
awesome.
is amazing.
The fun part was where it squirted everybody was below the waist because of the height of the stick. So you could actually get several squirts in before they'd notice anything. And
It looks like they pee-peed their pants.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, look. That was kind of a fun, if not a little gross. At least it was clean. It was just water.
Oh, it's awesome. It's like every kid's dream toy because
Yes.
every kid
We
loves
need
the
that for
pee-pee
the
jokes,
holidays.
pee-pee and poo-poo
Yes.
jokes.
Yeah.
Little
Yeah.
boys, it's all they talk
All they
about.
wanna
They
talk
would
about.
think that's the most hilarious thing ever.
You know, it is funny, all those toys in the 80s that got so out there on the extreme. the
Yeah.
Cabbage Patch Kids were ugly.
Well, we were just saying that Cabbage Patch Kids were not cute.
No.
They were not cute.
They
No.
were not cuddly and cute.
And if you look at it, I think what happened was, because there was a real batch of toys that came out, and they seemed like you were trying to top how gross they were, because that's how you got attention.
Yeah. The article we were talking about before you joined us was actually how 1986 especially was the year of ugly toys.
Yeah.
It was literally, it was like, who could have the ugliest toy out there from Mad Balls to whatever. It was literally a competition of how ugly and gross could your toys be. I mean, it was, it's pretty funny. And then, but it was really, they said it was really the year of torturing parents, because all the toys that weren't ugly were also really annoying noises and things like that. The article said it was like, if it was an annoying, noisy toy that was going to drive you nuts, it was like, that was the year for it. It was the year of torturing parents.
They were loud, like baby soft sounds was really loud and annoying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look, for real, like Rude Ralph, that toy was totally obnoxious and loud. And everything that they had was like on purpose, like, let's torture the parents. And it was like, but I just imagine the development room, I was saying, they're all like, how do we really drive the parents nuts? Like, what's going to really...
They had parent focus groups. Just to see.
Exactly. Well, speaking of focus groups in this article, which I know you've got a couple of stories too, Chuck, about focus groups, but they were also saying that with the toy we were talking about earlier, which was this toy that had breath blaster, which it was literally different types of bad breath. And they had a real hard time with toy testers and stuff, because the whole room was like nauseous. I remember, you have to share that funny story that you told me. You had to tell the girls about the lie detector toy and why it never made it to market.
Yeah. They had these guys that were good with electronics. It was before all the video games came out. And they created a little plastic box with a meter on it and two knobs and a little palm rest that was about the size of a mouse. And it had two little round discs that were metal electrodes. And you'd put your hand on it, and then people could ask you questions. And it measures the conductivity in your skin. And I guess when you lie, it gets a little more conductive for electricity, and the needle will jump. It kind of worked, but it didn't go anywhere because they couldn't sell it to the market. They went to a big buyer, and they met with him, and his wife was there because they ran the company, and they showed it to them, and they put it down in front of the buyer, and the wife insisted that the buyer try it. And he just pushed it away and says, "No, I don't think so." Because
I wonder what she was going to ask him.
That's
None of the
right.
men wanted to try the lie detector test. Yeah, because the toy industry was dominated by men, especially back. I mean, it was a male-dominated industry, and none of the men wanted to do the lie detector test. And the buyers, so they couldn't sell the toy.
Yeah.
Ooh, naughty.
We've all seen Mad Men. We know what was going on.
Yeah. It's not far wrong. That wasn't that inaccurate. I mean, I remember cocktail parties at our house.
Martini time.
Martini time, yep.
That's the way it was. Yeah, so I was raised on green olives as a vegetable.
That's why the fun farm wasn't fun for you.
Oh, yeah.
There was no olives.
But there was, by the way, the gross toys really tried to begin in the 60s, but people wouldn't have it.
Really? Like what?
Because the generation then, parents wouldn't accept it. There was something called rat fink. Have you ever heard of that?
What is that?
Rat
No.
fink?
But I can't wait.
Yeah, it was a guy named Big Daddy Roth, and he had this character riding a motorcycle that was a rat, and he called it Rat Fink. And when I was in, the fourth grade or so, we boys just thought, Rat Fink. You couldn't, Fink was a dirty word. You couldn't say it. It was like the F word today. You just can't say it.
Oh, okay.
And so, look, it's what it's called, Mom. It's called that. I don't know. So
it was too vulgar.
It's too vulgar. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. They had models of the rat you could make, the kind you glue together like cars and boats and planes.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it sounds kind of cute.
It was a big
A
deal.
little rat riding a motorcycle. I think that sounds cute.
It was a very ugly rat. It was really, rats are kind of cute, but this was not cute at all.
It didn't do well. It didn't do well as a toy.
It did well for a while, but parents weren't having any of it, and it died out.
Well, I need to ask the question: Water Wiggle a little phallic?
No, not at all.
Little top hat on a hose.
No,
I was just going to ask what's back there.
Not at all. I've got something better than that. Let me see.
You got something better than Water Wiggle?
Isn't that always the way? When you need a Water Weenie, it's not around.
A Water Weenie?
Yeah.
What is a Water Weenie? What is a Water Weenie?
Well, you got two of them. They're about this long and about as big around as your finger. And it was basically surgical tubing. And it was inside another rubber sleeve so that in case it burst, it wouldn't burst all over you. But you filled it up from the garden hose. You know what a balloon is like. You know, like a balloon artist takes these long balloons and makes them into animals. Well, think of this surgical tubing inflating like a long balloon. And it would fill up, and you pinched it at the top. There was a little nozzle at the top that you pinch, and then then as you released it, water would squirt out. If you took your fingers off it completely, it would be like a fire hose shooting out. And
I can't. I have to hold every word.
What year did this come out?
About 1970.
Okay, so parents in the 60s weren't having the rat fink. Right. I was saying parents in the 60s were not having the rat fink, but the 70s was like, bring on the weens.
Bring on the water.
Well, it was like a hot dog. You know, it was like a big inflated hot dog.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. And it was great fun because it had all that power to it. It was before they had those sticks you dip
Super
into the
blasters.
lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was before that came out. So no, when you say Water Wiggle, no, that was tame and
the Water Wiggle was just the beginning.
Water Wiggle was adorable. It was cute.
Very cute. Listen, ween is Jennie's son's favorite word in the world.
They would laugh for weeks over that. They would love it.
And was it literally called Water Ween, like on the market?
Water Weenie?
Water
Weenies.
Weenie.
Water Weenie.
Water
I'm
Weenie.
so sorry. Water Weenie.
This was kind of reminiscent of rat fink. This is Nutty Nodder. And
this podcast is taking a turn.
Yeah, let me get you one. You got to see the face on this thing.
Wait, you need to say that again. What is it called, Chuck?
The Nutty Nodder.
The Nutty Nodder.
And what does a Nutty Nodder do?
Does it go along with the Water Weenie?
Yes.
It's only the second dumbest toy that Wham-O ever made. It's got a really cute little face that's quite indeterminate what it's a face of, but it's a cute little face on a rubber ball, and you dangle the rope with the head on the bottom of it, and you flip it up and toss, and you try to loop the rope around the head, and then it ends up in a knot. It's difficult to do, but you feel some great sense of accomplishment if you can get that to knot.
Oh, kind of like my kids play with the little the ball and the rope, and they try to get it in the cup.
Yeah.
But
was,
here, let's talk about the name for a second. So that you mean like nutty, like crazy fun nutty?
Yeah.
So crazy.
Nutty.
Yeah.
And then nodder, like a knot.
Like a knot.
Okay.
Nutty
So
nodder.
you said that was the second dumbest toy. What was the first dumbest toy that Wham-O created?
Gosh, I didn't, I should have thought better of being involved with three ladies on a podcast, because this is I'm kind of glad I don't have one in here in this cabinet. Wait, I think I do in the other cabinet. Hang on.
Coming back with the dumbest toy.
Yes. It's a road trip. Yes.
I bet you it has the word nut or ween in it.
I'm sorry.
I've been saying I want to say the word ween on the podcast.
Well, you
now
got
I finally got to.
You got your joy, Jennie. We said ween about 10 times on this podcast.
Yay, ween.
Well, now I've got another one. This should bring joy to your hearts and regret to mine. The worst product they ever made was called Pokebone.
Stop! I love this.
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what does
and
Pokebone
it gets
do?
worse.
We need a description, full description. Was this another beer idea?
Yeah.
Every toy Wham-O made was they were always. It was like Mad Men, right? But-
They were, you're kidding. They
was.
were drinking when they came up with Pokebone and Water Weenie? I'm shocked.
That's the only way I could defend them is to put it on that. But it was a plastic bone that had a joint at one end, and it was kind of like narrowed at the top. So it was almost like a spear, but rounded. And then it had a leather lanyard on it and a little fish at the bottom of it. And in between were like vertebrae bones that were like little plastic discs. And you would flip it up and try to catch as many of those discs with a hole in it on that bone. It was super annoying to try to do it and gave no feedback as far as any fun, anything, any stretch of the imagination or of any concept of fun we know in the Western world. This wasn't it. And the worst part was they made a commercial with, you remember the program Laugh-In?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Do you remember a fellow by the name of Alan Seuss who was on the program?
Yes.
So having Alan Seuss, they had him doing it as a caveman in front of his cave trying to do the Pokebone and
Trying to poke a bone.
and being funny, and a newscaster with a microphone, trying to talk to him. And it was a lame commercial. It was a lame toy. And
I just found a
I hate
picture
to-
of it.
Oh,
Yeah,
she just
good.
found a picture of Pokebone.
I just found a picture of it.
All right. Well, here,
Pokebone.
Yeah.
now,
that was
looking
it.
at this, I'm going to tell you right now, Chuck, I hate to break it to you. Your dad and Spud were just like, hey, they came up with the term Pokebone and like, we just need to figure out anything so we can just have a toy named Pokebone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly what
Exactly.
happened. They had a few drinks and they're like, wouldn't it be hilarious if we had Pokebone?
Yeah. What can we do so we can
Just
say
looking at
Water
that.
Weenie? Yeah.
Exactly. What can we do so we can say Water Weenie and like,
Hey, it's
and
our
then the
company.
Pokebone and Water Weenie are
We
right
can
next to each
name it
other.
whatever we want.
We can do whatever we want to.
Exactly.
Thank goodness. My dad came
we
up
would have
with
liked happy hour with them.
Dad came up with the concept of super the toys named Super Ball, Super Stuff,
Yep.
Super Elastic Bubble Plastic. Thank goodness he didn't attach that moniker to Pokebone or Water Weenie.
Super Pokebone.
Super Water Weenie. Super Water Weenie.
Hey kids, you remember last year's Pokebone? Well, now get ready for Super Pokebone.
I gotta tell you though, I love the word super because it reminds me of my papa who passed away a couple of years ago, and he used to say super all the time. He
Uh-huh.
would just say like, "Oh, that's super." Now I just can imagine them like Super Ball, super because it meant it was super. Back then it was like super was the ultimate perfection of everything. That's
Yeah.
super.
Yep.
Even poking a bone. No, I'm kidding.
Was. Yeah.
Jenny brought up something really interesting and gross before you
Good.
came on, Chuck. And it was about Baby Alive and how it gets mold inside the mouth and you have to clean it. And there are all these videos and parents don't realize that there's like mold can get in there. Are there any
Yeah.
toys that Wham-O created that like had something like that where because they were dealing with water weenies or anything else, there was mold or anything that people weren't thinking about that could happen?
They said that super stuff should be refrigerated because it would grow mold over time.
Oh.
And, when you weren't playing with it, you should put it in the fridge. That's just because it was, of the moisture in it.
Right.
And the refrigerator would slow down the process of the mold growing so kids could play with it longer. But hey, if you have to, it's going to grow mold and you got to buy another one. That's all.
Right.
There you go.
So super stuff, the original slime, we'll call it the original slime.
Yeah.
Would actually grow mold. And did you put yours in the refrigerator?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You did because your
Oh, you
dad
did?
told
Okay.
you. Okay, that's good. Because
Well,
your dad
they
knew.
They have it on the package too. We put it in the fridge, and in the summer that was great because it was so cool when you brought it out and make face masks.
Was that
with
cold? Well, Super Ball is amazing. You have to tell the story of Super Ball.
It got banned at my school because lights in the gymnasium got broken from bouncing the Super Ball in there.
Oh, I bet. Oh, I bet.
I was
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
proud.
And I want to go back real quick, and I would like you, because the girls don't know the story, and I want you to tell the story of Super Ball and what happened at the toy fair and what Spud and Rich did to get everyone's attention.
They had a toy rep in Australia they were very close to, a guy by the name of Alex Tolmer. And his son, Brian, is the one who told Dad Spud about the wooden hoops they had in Australia back then. So they were very close. And when Alex was promoting this over there, they took a Super Ball that was the size of a basketball. There was one at Wham-O. That was my favorite thing. It was enormous. and heavy. And boy, would it bounce. But the problem with Super Balls was the problem they had to solve was that this rubber called butadiene, it had to be cooked at just the right temperature and under just the right amount of pressure. The way it was when you dropped it, it would recover about 97%, 96, 97%. That means you drop it from here and it would come right back up to there. But if it was really cooked at a little higher temperature, it would come almost 99%. It was incredible, but it was brittle and it would break eventually. After 2 or 3, 4, 10 bounces, it would shatter. So they discovered the right way to cook it, and then they were fine. But now, I imagine the recipe was different for this enormous, because this thing probably weighed 30 pounds, maybe 40 pounds. It was very heavy. So Alex took one up to the top of a hotel there in Australia and had the news crews, and everybody's going to watch them throw the ball off. And instead of bouncing, it hit the ground and shattered. And
oh, no.
A big chunk of it went through the big plate glass window in the department store on the first floor.
Oh.
So it was a big fun news story because they got it all covered there.
But then they did drop the successful balls from the sky too.
Yes. Yeah. The normal sized ones, though. They were only an inch and 7/8. They were more manageable for kids. But they really would bounce over your house. If you threw it down on the driveway, it would bounce up and over the house, no problem.
It's amazing.
Now, I do have to tell you something that one of your dad's toys, I'm actually a champion at, by the way.
Oh.
I am a hula hoop champion. I will challenge
right.
anyone to the hula hoop. I can go for hours. So, Kara, Jenny, if you want to have a contest, let's go.
I am not a hula hoop champion, but I believe you.
Yep.
I am not either, but I used to be pretty good with a Frisbee.
Oh, really? So the big myth about Frisbee is how it was invented, correct, Chuck?
Yeah. 2 independent things happened. On the East Coast, there were college kids that threw the pie tins on the college campuses, but a gentleman by the name of Fred Morrison invented the Frisbee. He called it the Pluto platter.
The Pluto platter.
That's a cool name.
You won't
Not
be
as
able
cool
to
as
see
Water
it, but,
Weenie, but okay.
but this was a Pluto platter, and I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, we
you
can see it.
the name
Oh, yeah.
there. And then you see the little portholes around here. This is like a flying saucer.
Uh-huh.
He called it, a flying saucer. And then there are the names of the planets. By the way, for gross, there's
Yes.
Uranus and all the other ones.
Uranus is still around, but Pluto's not a planet anymore, right?
Yeah, that's right. Pluto got dropped, but that was the first mold for Frisbee. And Dad Spud ran into Fred Morrison out at the LA County Fair on the beach down at Huntington Beach, and where he was demonstrating it. He was quite a character. He had quite a spiel for people to watch it. He would take with a partner, his brother-in-law. They would very laboriously pantomime this, stretching a string between the two of them, about 50 feet away from each other. And then he'd tell people that are watching, they'd get a crowd and he'd say, you just attach the Pluto platter to the string, in the invisible string, and he'd throw it, and it would make this swoop to his partner. And people, because he planted the idea of the string there, people saw it going on this string. And he sold the 100-foot roll of the string for $1 and
Stop it.
gave you a free Pluto platter with it.
Wow.
And that was their spiel. He was just a funny, fun guy, a real eccentric. It took him a long time to talk him into letting them take it over, but he was glad they did, because it took a long time. They actually had Pluto platter before the hula hoop, but it kind of just sat there. It was just a toy. It really didn't do much until the mid-'60s. They made different versions of it, the professional version, and they made it more of a sport. And that's when it started to take off, because then the older teens and adults then took it up as a sport. And then, of course, the kids want to be like the big kids. Then it took off. And, of course, it's kind of a worldwide thing now.
If you were to give us your top 5 grossest gross toys, either now or in the past, what would they be?
All right. So the dumbest toy was Pokebone, but the grossest toy they ever made was something called a Mink Stole for your belly button.
What?
Well,
What?
it turns out there were manufacturers in downtown LA that made mink stoles and mink coats. and they had all these scraps that they were just throwing away. So Dad and Spud thought, well, why don't we make a product out of these scraps, out of these remnants? So they punched out little, probably quarter-size chunks of mink fur and put adhesive on the back of it. And so a lady could adorn her belly button with a mink.
Because everybody wants a furry belly button.
Well, sure.
It was the 60s and 70s. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Doesn't want a little fur on their belly button.
Of course, nobody was wearing a shirt up there like that, so I don't know what the point was.
I'm speechless with the furry belly button. I don't even know.
Yeah.
hysterical.
Were belly
Mink
buttons
Stole.
cold?
I need to know what kind of beer were they drinking all the time?
Exactly.
Because they
What
just
was-
seemed
no,
like
that-
they
that's
would
gotta be
get
martinis.
anything. I
Hilarious.
mean,
What imaginations they had.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just-
they're definitely playing beer pong if they're coming up with the fuzzy the fuzzy belly button.
Well, that's how they came up with Liar's Poker card decks, was that very thing. They'd sit around playing Liar's Poker with dollar bills, and they made up a deck of cards that were like dollar bill size, or dollar bill printed on them with a funny artwork and face and the numbers, the serial numbers like you have on dollar bills, so that you could play Liar's Poker. That was another idea that went nowhere.
I bet they were a lot of fun
Wait,
to
are
hang
you
out with.
know.
Oh, they were.
Wait, are you saying the belly button first didn't go anywhere?
Didn't go anywhere.
I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look it up and see if we can find it.
I know what Molly's getting everybody for Christmas. Well, this has been amazing, Chuck.
So much fun.
Yeah, well, I've learned my lesson not to hang around with three young ladies all ganging up.
With the water weenies.
All these double
And
entendres.
if you find us a water weenie, we'll be excited.
Okay.
Yes. Well, that just helped me finish my Christmas shopping.
Dude, furry belly button covers and bad breath blasters, done and done.
Can't wait to hit up eBay, and our friends and family are going to love getting gifts from us this year.
Yes.
They are.
And this gross toy conversation is far from over. We have many more decades to go over. So join us next Wednesday to find out fun facts like, was the original Easy Bake Oven really radioactive? And what are the top gross toy trends for 2024 that you need to know about for your shopping list?
If you're listening right now and you don't already follow us, hit that follow button and make sure you never miss the icky, sticky fun.
Follow us at It's Oh Gross on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, and YouTube to stay updated on all things Oh Gross. Catch you next Wednesday with a brand new episode.
Oh, gross. That drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Icky's what we do. Psoriasis, podiatrist, and pinworms too. It's so gross. No need for strife, because gross. Life is part of life, it's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. We got the facts, nothing to fear. Oh, gross. It's just science, no, it's not weird. It's just science, nothing to fear. It's just science, so wipe those tears. It's boogers and rush and that sticky scratch.